Okay, folks, welcome to the first lecture of the year, and this is the way that we're going to be presenting our information is through these online lectures. And one of the advantages of having this at your fingertips is that you're able to go back and look at these things as many times as possible, and I encourage you to do so as we go out through the course of the year. So the first thing we're going to take a look at here has to do with our scientific skills, and these are skills that we all possess, and the hope here is by the time that you leave this class that you'll be able to sharpen these skills to allow you to come up with answers to problems. So let's start off and look at what we mean by our scientific skills. Well, these are skills that we need to succeed, not only in science, but in life as well. These are skills that we possess, that we use every single day to be able to solve problems, to be able to get around them and do things that we do. And Albert Einstein kind of summed it up the best way in saying that the whole of science is nothing more than just a refinement of everyday thinking. And he essentially meant that there are things right under our nose every single day. What we have to be able to do is kind of hone our skills, use our scientific skills to make those discoveries. And we make those discoveries, we can advance the scientific community. So let's start off and take a look here. What are scientific skills? And there's going to be 8 of them. And the first one is probably the most important one, and that is our skill of observing, being able to use our 5 senses to collect information, and that's hearing, tasting, touching, seeing, and smelling. And the more of those senses we use, the better overall picture we have of what we are observing. It doesn't mean if we only use one skill it's a bad observation, but we tend to get more data the more skills that we use. The second type of skill that we have is being able to classify, putting things into categories based on shared characteristics. And a lot of those are going to be physical and chemical properties that we'll be looking at through the course of the year, but they could be something as very simple as grouping people according to hair color. We could look at grouping by age. We could look at, where they live. So being able to kind of put them in those shared groups so that we know we have a general idea of what those things are about. And then if we make any more discoveries and we associate some of the patterns that go along with that, we have a better idea of what that thing is about. The third one we're going to do a lot of in here, and that is measuring, being able to use instruments to quantify a property of matter. And we have different instruments for different properties. If we want to measure length, we use something like a ruler. If we want to measure volume, we use a graduated cylinder, but we want to be able to quantify. We want to be able to see how much of something that we have. The next type of skill that we have is predicting, and some of you may know this as its fancier term, a hypothesis, and how a hypothesis is an educated guess. What do we think is going to happen? Now, one of the things that I want to stress with a hypothesis and making predictions is a lot of times those predictions are going to be wrong, and that's just the way that science works. But what we're able to do is through those experiments and coming up with those possible solutions, even if something does go wrong, now we can kind of go back and we can retool it, we can revise our hypothesis, and hopefully come up with an answer sometime down the road. But we always want to go to an experiment having some sort of idea of what do we think is going to happen, and we want to make sure that that educated guess, that what we think is going to happen, is based on some prior knowledge. And if it's not, we go back and we do a little research about it. So those are our first 4 scientific skills. So moving on here. And this will be a recurring theme in our notes, and this is our brain break, and this is the time that we want to stop doing what we're doing and just kind of get up, move our arms around, maybe make circles, get the blood flowing, get our brains working. And our brain break, what I like to refer to every day, is the Chuck Norris fact of the day. Even though we're taking a break, we want to learn a little bit about something. So if you spell Chuck Norris in Scrabble, you win forever. So next time you play someone, you might want to spell Chuck Norris. Alright, so now that we know a little bit about our first 4 scientific skills, let's look at the last for scientific skills. And one of the things that we have in every experiment is a control and a variable, being able to keep one condition of the experiment the same while changing another. And we'll explain that a little more down the road when we look at the scientific method. But it's important that we have at least one control and one variable in each experiment. Our next scientific skill is our data, gathering and organizing our information, our observations, our measurements, and putting them in some form that allows me to come up with some ideas. And a lot of times that data could be in the form of either a chart or a graph or some sort of way to take that information, to be able to classify it, to be able to organize it so that we can make some sort of sense, and again, be able to come up with an answer or a possible solution to the problem. All right, well, the next has to do with experimenting, being able to test a predicted outcome. This is the fun part of our lab, is being able to go through a particular procedure and test our hypothesis, see if indeed we are going to be right or if we are going to be wrong. And it's not just going through the motions of when we experiment. We want to be able to make sure we know exactly what's going on in every step, because if we miss something or we do something incorrectly, that could lead to a problem later down the road. And our last scientific skill is being able to communicate. Now that we take all of these ideas that we have and all these findings or events and being able to describe them to other people. The way that you describe them towards me is through a lab report, but you might communicate with other groups in your class to be able to check your answers to see if indeed you come out with the right thing. So these are all of our scientific skills. These are things that I know every single one of you possess, again, but our job here is to hone these skills so that we can come out and we can come up with a possible solution to an answer. So if there are any questions, if there's any problems that you may have, make sure you go back and double check and maybe review through over these notes, or even better, maybe you'll just throw out a question in class. But one of the things that I want to leave you here with about our scientific skills is that scientists don't know everything, because if they would, there wouldn't be any more scientists. So again, if you have any questions, you have any concerns, you have any problems, please make sure you ask in class, and we will see you later.